Hello, I'm David Hunt and welcome to The Art Hunter. My guest today was awarded an AM in 2017. We had to bow when he walked in, he's so important. Opera producer, conductor, businessman, founding director of Melbourne Opera, founding the Universal Theatre, the Comedy Club, and the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Hello, what hasn't he done? Touring the world recently, engagements included Germany and regular tours of China. Chief, I find this really interesting. The Herald Sun aria, and he's one of the main people involved there, has conducted many of Melbourne Opera's productions, including last year's highly acclaimed Bendigo, The Ring Cycle. The Ring Cycle, there's some of the images around us here as we sit. What a pleasure it is to welcome you, Greg. Hello.
Hello, David. How are you?
Good, thank you. And congratulations on a spectacular career.
Well, it's not over yet. But
it's not over yet, but wow.
When you add it all up, it's been going for a long time.
Yeah.
And we've
that's
started a few things that have survived.
Right. That's because you're 93 now. And
I wish the Universal Theatre had survived.
Yeah. But that was good in its day. But look at because Athenaean, you're heavily involved in the Athenaean Theatre as well. So, Greg, where did it all start for you? With the interest, because you're a conductor. Was it music to begin with?
Yeah, it was music. Yeah. At school and then at university.
Right.
In fact, I was at a concert last night and saw my 97-year-old music teacher there.
Oh, wow.
Who's still large as life, Mary Armour.
Wow.
And so she was terrific, and then at university I did arts actually. I did classics actually, to be perfectly frank.
Right.
But started the University Orchestra at the time, and then I went to Queensland and worked for the Queensland Opera.
Right.
And after a couple of years there, I was then working at the Australian Opera in Sydney.
Yep.
With in the glory years, what now seem to be the glory years.
Yeah.
With Richard Bonning when he was music director, and
wow.
Dame Joan, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Pavarotti, you name it, they were there.
But what was it though with you? You're just not satisfied with conducting, and and all of that you've just mentioned. Like Opera Australia and Queensland Opera, but you're this businessman behind the scenes in so many ways.
It's true. Look, 40 years ago, it's a long time ago, there were very, very few opportunities for Australian conductors. There still are very few opportunities, but there are more than then.
So they used to bring them all in from overseas.
And then if you're a young conductor, as you know, the main problem is practicing because you need an orchestra.
Yeah.
So when I was in Queensland, actually, John Currow, who's now late John Currow, ran the Queensland Youth Orchestra, which was a wonderful orchestra. It was better than the Queensland Symphony at the time.
Wow.
And he used to give you opportunities, but other than that, it was very infrequent. So I was involved on the administrative side when I was working at the Australian Opera, but I used to go to all the rehearsals I could and learned a lot, and particularly from Carlo Felice Cillario, who was very generous and gave me quite a few lessons.
Right.
But then I just had to decide, would I stay in Australia or go overseas? I stayed in Australia and got involved on the business side. Yeah. Moved back to Melbourne and started the Universal Theatre, actually.
Right.
Which one thing led to another, and here I still am. But conducting and music's always been my first love.
Yeah.
Really.
But, I mentioned in the little intro as well, the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
Well, that was a great thing to start. That happened because the Universal Theatre in Fitzroy, my business partner at the time was a guy called Tim Woods, who used to run the Flying Trapeze, whereas it was known the Fly Trap.
Yep.
And there were about half a dozen of us doing a lot of comedy. There was the Universal, Fly Trap, The Last Laugh, of course, the comic, what was it called? Rod Conduct's place, the Comedy Cafe.
Yep.
There were about half a dozen of them around the Fitzroy area. When John Cain took over as Premier, a bit unexpectedly, Don Dunstan came over.
From Adelaide,
basically to be his minder, but he was theoretically the head of the Tourism Commission.
Right.
But he's really showing John Cain how to do it.
Yeah.
And he was a great guy, as you know, great guy for the arts. He arrived in Melbourne and discovered this little comedy scene
Yeah.
between the APG, the Pram Factory, and us round in Fitzroy and Carlton. I mean, Fitzroy was fairly dangerous at the time. Not now.
No, it's not now.
But, you know, cars used to get broken into and
Yeah.
it was always very difficult in Brunswick Street. And Don said to John Gate, look, you've got this great little scene, why don't you make a festival?
That simple.
Rang us up. Being Melbourne, we could all get in the one room at the one time, even though we were competitors.
Yeah.
John Pinder, of course, from the Last Laugh. John Timlin from the Pram Factory, ourselves. Ralph Curl, who now lives in Sydney, who's then running Flying Trapeze. And we were able to collaborate for the greater good. John Kane gave us a couple $100,000 out of his back pocket to see what we could make of it. I happen to know Peter Cook and Barry Humphries very well because I'd worked with them in the past.
Name dropping, excuse me.
Well, that's why we're here, isn't it? And so we got Barry and Peter to be the first guests of honour.
Wow.
And we did it all with smoke and mirrors. The Age came aboard just as they liked the idea, even though there was nothing to show them. So there's a lot of goodwill involved. And then none of us expected it to grow to the level it has.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been extraordinary.
It's been an extraordinary...
It's now one of the big three.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was saying to you earlier, wisely the founders all put in the constitution that we had to retire after 10 years.
Right,
Or we'd all still be there.
Right, okay.
And that's been a good idea, and the festival has grown into
Has
ways.
grown, yeah.
But it's still, our ethos at the time was to provide a real stage for Australian artists.
Yeah.
We still do that. There's a lot of foreigners come in now. But,
Oh, yes,
but we
hundreds
still
of them.
launch a lot of Australian careers.
You do?
Tim Minch and, you know,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
loads of them.
Yeah.
So it's a good deed in a naughty world.
But how do you react to, you know, like all of a sudden the comedy festivals around us now?
Yeah.
And you must be very proud of that, you know, that you were part of this.
Well, it's one of those things they can't take away from you.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to see how it's grown.
Yeah.
You know, there's cheap imitations in Sydney and the Adelaide Fringe, of course, but
Yep.
but Melbourne, Edinburgh, and Montreal's gone a bit off the boil now.
Oh, has it?
But they were the big three.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Montreal was always a TV setup, as just to put here.
Right.
Melbourne's been and Edinburgh have been the big two.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, anywhere you go in the world, everyone's heard of the Melbourne Comedy Festival.
They certainly
I will
have.
remember the day we decided to call it the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, because for years it was the Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
And our general manager at the time said, oh, why don't we call it international? I said, oh, yeah. We gave it about 2 minutes thought. Yeah, let's call it that. And that gave it a whole new,
Wow.
to our surprise,
Yeah.
a whole new
Yeah. Isn't
atmosphere,
it, yeah,
just because
isn't
something
that
was international.
international, yeah. All of
So
a
there you
sudden,
go,
that's very funny.
But you can never tell.
But you know, like, so therefore, opera keeps on, you know, like, coming into to view. You know, like Melbourne Opera, you were involved in the early days of
Absolutely,
that.
I was starting it. Well, that was because the VSO got closed down, went broke, but was never subsidised enough.
Yep.
I had a lot of friends who were singers. I used to run a big agency, and
Hold on, you were running an agency.
the performance management it was called.
on top
And
of
we
everything
represented, you know,
else.
Marina Pryor and Michael Comic, all the big, Rob Guest, all the big music theatre people,
Yeah.
Sylvie Palladino, and a whole lot of opera singers, because they couldn't get representation. There was only one agency in Australia at the time, run by Jennifer Eddy, who was great, but she was waiting for the people to be established, and I was getting him going. And anyway, VSO collapsed. There was no work in Melbourne for Victorian-based singers. There was a sort of a bullshit PR merger in inverted commas, but people were told if they wanted to work, they had to move to Sydney.
Yeah.
So after a couple of years, they got sick of it. We said, well, let's start something up in Melbourne and show that there's A, the demand, and B, the talent. And it's our 21st year this year.
Wow.
And we did the ring cycle last year.
How was that? You know, like, and taking it out of town as well.
Well, the reason we took it out of town was because after COVID, you just couldn't get into any of the big theatres. We started with Rheingold at the Regent.
That's right.
Which, as you know, is a wonderful theatre for opera, it turns out.
Yep.
Jason didn't know until I said, you'll find it's got great acoustics. And the first opera we did there was Tannhäuser, which had a chorus of 90. And I said, look, you won't enjoy it, but come along, Jason, you just should hear how good your theatre is. And he literally said to me, where are the mics? I said, there are no mics.
It's opera.
That's what 90 voices sound like.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Opera Australia are actually using it next year.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, hold on. I just want to go back.
Yeah.
The ring cycle. Tell our viewers, if they don't know what the ring...
Oh,
who
right.
wrote it?
Well, the ring cycle is Richard Wagner's sort of
His...
great final egotistical triumph. It lasts for 16 hours. It runs over 4 nights.
Yep. And
It's
people
sort of-
fly in around the world
They're
to
called
see
ring nuts.
it. Yeah.
They fly in from all around the world. So we'd started our ring cycle, and to do the ring cycle is sort of the apogee of what you can do as an opera company.
Yep.
So Opera Australia, for instance, took them 60 years to do their first. We did ours in the 20th year. But we started it at the Regent with Rheingold. The next year we did, in between COVID lockdowns, literally the day after we did Rheingold, there was a lockdown. We squeezed Valkyria in, the Valkyrie,
Yeah.
at the Madge. The day after there was a lockdown. So we said to people, if you want to know when the lockdown is,
Yeah, and stick with
look at our
us, yeah.
schedule. But then, of course, we wanted to do the whole ring cycle, which is the whole 4 operas. And because of COVID, all the Melbourne theatres are very, very busy. They're booked out because everything got
Yep.
backed up. So we couldn't get a Melbourne theatre. We'd been and done a few concerts in Rheingold, actually, at the Alhambra Theatre in Bendigo, which is this amazing theatre in the middle of the Bendigo prison.
Oh.
So you go in through if you haven't been there, go there. You go through the prison walls, the box office is still in the cells, the cells are still all there,
Yeah.
the dungeons are there, people got hung there. Jack Charles was incarcerated there for a couple of years. You know, it's amazing. They closed the prison about 20 years ago, and for some particular reason, the local school principal, some kind of genius, the secondary college is built around the prison.
Wow.
So it was sort of go directly to jail, do not pass go.
Oh, boom, boom.
But when they closed the prison, he said, right, I need a theatre. And he got all the hollow logs together from the education department, the council, state government, built this wonderful, wonderful theatre in the middle of this prison. So you've got a state-of-the-art theatre, seats 850, big pit, which is a great rarity.
Yep.
The pit holds 80, which you need for Wagner. We squeezed 90 in. And this wonderful state-of-the-art backstage facilities and stage and everything. So we're able to do the ring cycle there. And they thought we were mad, but I knew about the following that the ring cycle
Yeah.
has, both nationally and then internationally.
Yep.
So we had a lot of people fly in for it.
Yep.
A lot of people come down from Sydney. For reasons I don't understand, there's direct connection between Bendigo and Sydney for flights.
Oh,
Who knew?
who knew?
Yeah. And of course, a lot of Melbourne people came up.
Yep.
So it was a wild success for 3 cycles.
Fantastic. And, you know, like good for tourism for the
Well,
the
we put
city.
$8 million into the local
Whoa.
economy. But of course, Melbourne Opera has never had $1 of subsidy. And we got turned down 3 times. 3 times, not once, not twice, 3 times the Cock Road
Yeah.
for some help to put the ring cycle on in Bendigo. No help. Nevertheless, a huge success. Won all these awards. Best tourism thing, best thing in the Performing Arts Centre. We're up for endless green room awards, of course. It was a wild success, and so now we'll be doing it, we hope, again in Bendigo. Sydney now want it. There's a very interesting dynamic about it.
Did you make money out of it?
We didn't lose money. You can never make money, David.
Oh, okay. In the theatre, you didn't.
We
never
didn't
make
lose money. We had very generous philanthropic support.
Fantastic.
It was only $1,500 to go to the full cycle, which was considerably less than, say, the one in Brisbane. The box office at Bendigo said, people won't pay $1,500. I said, just you wait and see.
Yeah.
So it grossed a couple of $2.5 million with the subsidy we had. But the other important thing was we used, with the philanthropic support, not the subsidy, we used an all-Australian cast.
Fantastic.
And that's something that has annoyed me for years.
Yeah.
And all the Australian singers.
Yeah.
is the number of singers that are being brought in that are no better than Australian singers. I don't mind bringing in people who sell tickets. I did a tour with Juan Diego Flores last year. Of course you bring him in. But people who don't have any particular following or reputation, use the Australian singers.
Yep.
So our point was, a political one really,
Yep.
was that all these great Australian singers are available. We cast the ring cycle, the entire ring cycle, which involves hundreds of people, totally Australian. Huge international acclaim. We brought Siegfried Jerusalem over, who's the most famous tenor from the last 40 years in the Wagner world. He was knocked out. He was our guest of honour. He's 82. But he was our guest of honour. He said, I did not know what to expect, but I didn't expect this.
Yeah.
You know. And he said, it was funny, when he left, he said, Bendigo can go back to sleep now. But he was a great guy.
Yeah.
So we did it at a very high level.
Yeah.
Very successful, Opera magazine, all the rest. You know.
But, like the set for it that you did was spectacular. Costume, like, it's not, opera is not a cheap something to put on, is it?
Well, a lot of money gets wasted, David.
Oh.
A lot of money gets wasted.
Okay.
I was the producer, I didn't conduct it. Of course,
No.
we had one of the great conductors from the world, Anthony Negus, come. Anthony Negus, who we've worked with a lot, who loves coming to our company. But as producer, what's annoying me about the ring cycle is it's conceived as an entity for operas. Right?
Yep.
So you'd use the same set, wouldn't you? No, most people don't. We did. We had a unit set, brilliant set designed by Andrew Bailey, which if you saw it, it transformed from opera to opera.
Yep.
But it was the basic same set. So once we bumped that set in, it was there.
Right.
Then the hard thing with the ring cycle was we had done Rheingold and Valkyria,
Yep.
but we had to open Siegfried and Götterdämmerung, 12 hours of opera in a week, in the 1 week. But because the set didn't have to change over,
Yep.
it was all achievable.
Yeah.
So we just said, I will do that, don't worry.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody has to be very flexible.
Yep.
But it cost us, if you include the initial seasons, it cost $5 million.
Whoa.
Opera Australia's one in Brisbane cost 16.
Wow.
Now, you know,
Yep.
how come?
How come? Well,
A lot of money gets wasted.
yep. Yep.
Can I say this direct to the camera? In the subsidised area.
So true. So true. Now,
So true.
So true. Now let's talk about.
Goes on admin, David.
It goes on admin.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does.
Not on the artists.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Athenaeum
Yeah.
on Collins Street
Yes.
in the city.
Yeah.
It's even got a library in.
Oh, the
in
Athenaeum's fantastic. It's got the second oldest back wall in Melbourne, the back wall of the theatre.
Yep.
Dates from 1839.
Wow.
It was set up by Lonsdale, one of the two.
Oh, one of the founding.
Lonsdale,
Right.
in the initial constitution, to counter clerical influence in the colony, is its reason d'etre. So we've kept that going.
Yeah.
So we just had Rocky Horror Show just closed.
Yep.
We've got Douglas Murray on this week and then the Comedy Festival. So we cater for a lot of, all the operas, Melbourne operas, based there, although the larger operas we do in bigger theatres. But it was a mechanics institute. So it's always had its library running
Okay.
on the first floor. Pay your $80, you're a member of the
Yep.
Mechanics Institute,
Yep.
of the Athenaeum Library now, and you own a tiny portion of the building.
Yep.
So it's a public institution.
Yeah. And there's
Quite unique.
And there's even been performances in there as well, hasn't there?
In the library, oh yes.
Yeah.
All over the place.
Yeah.
It's quite a unique institution, and it's good that it's kept going through thick and thin. When we took over in '86, it was really on its uppers because the region was closed. John, was 1986. Melbourne was in terrible trouble. The MTC left the Athenaeum to go to the Playhouse,
Yep.
which had been purpose built for it. They've now vacated it, ironically enough. But that's a subsidised sector for you. And
Build their own theatre.
that's right.
Why not?
So they were very worried that they'd have the region, which was a bomb site, with a black band on it, a green band, and then the Athenaeum dark. We were running the Universal. So we got rang up and said, I don't suppose you're interested in the Athenaeum. I said, not at all. I couldn't believe it. So we took it over and built it up over the years. And look, it's a money pit because it's such an old building.
Yeah.
But with the trust, it's owned by the public. So there's the trustees and ourselves. We've gradually kept it going. But it's only this morning I had a meeting about the roof.
But
Roof's a nightmare.
But you must be so proud of it, though. You know, like that theatre alone, Greg.
Well, it's a beautiful theatre. It was built as a... it's actually, the shell of it is inside the old Mechanics Hall. The shell is from 1925. What you see is the interior. It's the same guy who designed the Princess.
Right.
The Princess interior.
Yep.
White, his name was. So it's got beautiful acoustics. Part of the improvements we've made is we've put a pit in. So we've got a pit that holds 45 when we need it for the operas. It's perfect for smaller scale operas. The next one we're doing is Lucia di Lammermoor, which is about as big as we can fit in.
I love that. It's a
It's a
great
beautiful
opera.
opera. Yeah. We've done a lot of Donizetti, a lot of bel canto.
Yeah.
When we set up Melbourne Opera, Joan and Richard kindly agreed to be patrons because I knew them, and Primrose, Lady Potter, was our patron in chief, and she rang everyone, and they all became patrons. Dick Hamer, Richard Duval, Joan and Richard, Dame Elizabeth, all these people. So we had a bit of solidity behind us.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been hard because we've had no subsidy, but this is our 21st year, and we did the ring cycle last year, and that's caused a great frisson around the world, actually.
Yeah.
How have we done it without subsidy? I said, let me tell you, a lot of money gets wasted.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about opera per se. Why is Melbourne Opera doing well? You know, like obviously you people are very smart on the way you're doing it, without that money.
Well, it's a discipline.
But why do people still love opera and new generations coming through?
You know what I think, David? I think it's something that you come to when you're older.
Do you?
When you're a bit older, look, you always get the young people to come along. Once they come, they say, this is great. That's our experience. We have very cheap tickets, 25,
well, a
30
lot of
bucks.
music students and all that would
And we
come,
run a
wouldn't they?
schools program
Oh, do you?
to let the schools come to performances. We don't go to them.
Right.
They come to us. But basically, it's an older audience. When I worked at the Australian Opera in the 70s at the Sydney Opera House, the question was, the audience is so old. Well, still the case 40, 50 years later. The audience is an older audience.
Yeah.
But when it works, there's nothing like it. You know?
Yep.
When everything comes together,
Yep.
the drama, the staging, and of course the music and the singing, there's nothing can top it in my experience.
Yeah.
And most people's experience. But, you know, we've found over the years, it's just getting people in the door is the problem. And then, you know, some people will just be knocked out. When we did the ring up in Bendigo, I had a friend of mine who was a singer who'd never seen the ring, right? He's a professional singer. And after Rheingold, he said to me, my God, this has changed my life. I said, well, wait till you see Good at Emerald.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if it's done well and seriously, can really just hook you for life. I just conducted Figaro last weekend with our emerging artists. We have an emerging artist program.
Oh, lovely.
It's the best one in the country, where we give people, young artists, the opportunity not just to do arias and things, but to do whole operas, or come in as understudies, or in some cases, sing roles if it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, we did the whole of the Marriage of Figaro.
Yep.
So popular, we had to do an extra show. It was sold out every night. And a standing ovation, because you see something like The Marriage of Figaro, I think it's the greatest opera ever written. It's about everything in the world, love, sex, forgiveness, marriage, you name it. And if you do it seriously, people just they can't believe how wonderful it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are a lot of operas like that. Lucia is another. famous mad scene, you know.
But, and the fact is, Greg, is that a lot of the operas, we know particular pieces from it. They're used in TV commercials,
right.
they're used in films, and we've seen them, we've heard them along the way. Now, back to you, you know, like, because you've had an illness, but you're still like...
An illness, that's the way of describing it.
Well, do you want to tell...
I've had a stroke.
A stroke, okay. It's right. Well, I didn't want to say...
Stroke victims, it's more than an illness, isn't it?
And you've lost your singing voice, I hear was
Unfortunately, it's called the lost chord.
The lost chord.
I've only got one chord. It might come back, but at the moment it's a blessing.
Right. But, you know, like you're still conducting a bit, but you've got to sit down now. How has that changed you from conducting instead of standing up? I think we've got you over a shoulder somewhere.
Conducting is one of those things that you do for your whole life. You never get to the bottom of it. You can never really feel that you know it, you know?
Yep.
And opera's very difficult because you have to deal with the singers who at any one moment are doing something harder than you know?
Yeah.
And so they'll make mistakes and then you have to deal with it.
Oh yeah, you're picking up on, do they miss lines and...
Endless.
Oh wow.
But it's fun. You know, it's challenging but fun. But people overconduct. People overconduct because they think they've got to express every last thing, you know, it's the Bernstein effect. But you look at Bernstein at the end of his life, he was conducting like this.
Oh, okay.
So, having had the stroke, it stopped me overconducting. I have to sit down. I try not to be Otto Klemperer, who'd had a stroke, who set himself on fire in his bed one time from smoking in bed.
Whoa.
By the end of his career, there's videos of him, this is Otto Klemperer conducting, is like this. But electrifying performances.
Yeah.
Because it all really happens in rehearsal. And as long as you keep the ship of state afloat, it's surprising how little you have to do.
Yeah.
Charles McKerris says it happens by emanation.
Okay.
Psychological.
Yeah.
And there's a large psychological component in it.
Because
really your job is conning everybody into being unified.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is pulling everyone together. You've got an orchestra, you've got the chorus, you've got all the principal singers.
That's right, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people involved in an opera, isn't there?
Look, every now and then it all comes together wonderfully. Doesn't happen that often. And you feel, oh, I can do anything. Everybody's on the one target. Currion said, if the river's flowing, don't interfere with it.
Oh, okay.
And it's a very true remark.
Yeah, brilliant.
So your job really is to just keep things ticking over. Don't overdo it through the complications I've had recently. I can't overdo it now. And look, I came back to conducting last weekend, actually, properly. A month ago, I did a couple of Figaros.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favourite operas, and 4 hours, and with a young artist.
You got on. You got through it.
No, it was fine. Yeah.
Yep.
I was exhausted.
Quite exhausted. Of course, it would be.
Almost as exhausting as this, David.
So, what is Melbourne Opera coming like this year?
We've recovered from the ring.
Yep.
We then did Maria Stuarda very successfully with a great Australian singer, Helena Dix, who's currently in Brussels, who's from Melbourne, who we bring back all the time. She's a wonderful bel canto singer. We did Norma for her. She made her Norma debut with us, and Richard Bonning came, and she nearly died because, you know, he's made, I think, 5 different recordings of it. He came and he said to her afterwards, I've discovered a rare jewel. Oh. And invited her to sing at his 90th.
Whoa.
Which was great. Well, we just did Maria Stuarda with Helena. Helena Xanthidakis, who's also made recordings with Richard, is coming to do, also a Melbourne singer, is coming to do Lucia. She's European-based as well, but Melbourne person. And the rest of the cast are all from Melbourne. It's a great opera, as you know, with Sutherland as sort of this huge shadow. But same with Norma. You've got to keep doing these operas. Helen has never done it before, so she'll be making a debut in the role with us. She's a great bel canto singer. She's done quite a few things with us. We did the Australian premiere of Rossini's Otello with her. She had a huge success. And years ago we did Maria Stuarda with her when we originally did it. And she's a wonderful, wonderful artist. So we're looking forward to that very much. The rest of the cast are all Australian.
Yep.
Henry Chu, Simon Meadows, Eddie Mulia Massielli, Boydo, and we've got a very strong cast, Sarah Sweeting. And that's in May. Then it's the Puccini centenary this year, centenary of his death.
That's right. Yeah.
So in September we're doing Madame Butterfly, why not, for
Whoa.
money. Hasn't been done for quite a few years in
Yeah,
Melbourne.
yeah.
Madame Butterfly, and in combination on the off nights we're going to do Suor Angelica, which is a one actor, which is my favourite, probably with Helena Dix, and a concert of Puccini chunks as the other half of that
Fantastic. Oh, that'll be popular.
Yeah, so it'll be a Puccini festival, a little
Yep.
Puccini festival
Yep.
in September.
Yep.
And then we're getting ready for Master Singers, Die Meister Singer, which we're doing in February next year. Probably just semi-staged at this outset because I can't get a theatre.
Right.
I won't go into the details of that, but let me say I'd booked a theatre and then the booking got removed.
Oh.
And I was not happy about that.
Oh.
So we're doing that semi-staged in February, but that's a major undertaking, it's 6 hours. So the chorus, and with Anton Eggers and Warwick Fife as Hans Sachs, we'll start work on that in October. It's a big undertaking.
Wow.
Huge cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But a great opera.
yeah, but the fact is that everything you do, you've got a plan, and you know, it takes a long time to move along, doesn't it?
And we've also got to get the money, David,
You've got to get the money.
because we're not subsidised.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, you know, like, congratulations on a brilliant career. As you said, it's not over.
I hope not. I thought it was for a minute.
Yeah, but it's not. And you're like, and you're an enthusiasm. You're like, you're so positive, and you're so
Well, David,
willing.
what would you do otherwise? You're sitting at home.
Yeah, true.
And the beauty thing about Melbourne is so much happens,
Yep.
and at the end of the day, everybody sort of rubs along together.
Yep.
I mean, we get on really well with the Mariners across the road, and Jason's been very helpful with us, with Melbourne Opera, with making theatres available.
Yep.
Mike Walsh up at the Madge
Yep.
loves having us in.
Yeah.
He loves having the operas there, but you know, he's back-to-back music theatre, so we can't do anything there for the time being. But that's the beauty of Melbourne, and that's why the Comedy Festival was and remains a success.
Yep.
Everybody can get along
It's such
and
a
look at the bigger vision, you know?
Yeah, the arts I love so much,
Yeah,
and it's a
yeah.
real community city. You know,
It
people
really is.
want to be
It
involved.
really
you
is,
know,
yeah.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming
Well,
on
thanks for
today.
all your work too, David.
No, my pleasure.
Keeping it going.
My pleasure.
Good
My
on you.
pleasure. My supporting the arts. My little
That's right.
spot to support the
Oh,
arts.
you'd be surprised.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
You've been watching The Art Hunter. I'm David Hunt, and we'll be back again next week, but Greg won't be here. Somebody else will be sitting here.
Ha.
See ya.